Our next topic is going to be artificial intelligence, of course, how AI reinvents mobility. And to talk about that, we've got the Chief Digital Officer from Volkswagen here, one of the most anticipated guests on the roster today, Mr. Johann Jungwirth. Come on up. We're doing a little housekeeping here, but that's okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, everyone.
Just yeah.
Okay. So it looks like we will just need a minute to get the presentation. So I will talk about how AI reinvents mobility, what it means in automotive, in all the different aspects of user experience, of the products, of the customer interfaces, of the digital platforms, the ecosystems, and of course, how it powers and helps actually to power self-driving vehicles, basically heavy AI in the situation analysis, in the decision logic, and I will also touch a little bit on, what does it mean for us as a digital company? How does it change, processes and support us? And with that, I think we'll have the presentation here to start. So we all live in a digital world, right? We are connected at all times. We are basically digital humans living in digital cities, and we all have seen where basically the internet has led us, smartphones in our pockets, all the information, globally connected at all times, friends all over the world in real time, and also knowledge and education. I think this is really key. Now, when we look at this from a corporate perspective, from a company perspective, we have divided, the digital transformation into 3 layers. The first one, and that's the core of the circle, and that's really important to me, is the digital customer. And that's all about the human, the user, our customers, and I think that's really key. The next layer are digital products and services, and a huge topic, of course, for us to transform the company to also become an integrated hardware, software, and services company. You all know we come from a decade-long, success being hardware companies, but now we need to transform our industry, our company, to become a vertically, deeply integrated hardware, software, and services company. And then the outer layer is really the digital company with all our digital processes, with the right tools to be attractive, for the talents of today. And that's what we call Triple D, and summarizes the digital transformation. Now, we all remember, when Mark Andreessen said, software is eating the world, and every company in the future will become a software company. And Mark, the founder of Netscape, and then later a very successful VC in the Valley. And then the next phase was platforms and ecosystems are eating the world. And my statement today here is AI is eating the world. I think this is the next phase, and I also want to go a little bit in history, looking at the phases of, application developers. Maybe we have some of you here, having developed applications in the 90s, mainly for the desktop or for browsers, applications on the desktop and laptops and MacBooks or notebooks, so to speak. And then you can see over time, the convenience went up and intelligence went up with the heavy focus on mobile. So you could see in the 2000s, especially with the smartphone rise, with iPhones and Android and so on, it was mobile first before you decided to, develop an application potentially for the desktop or for the web. The next phase was mobile only. So you see a lot of applications today, Instagram or Snapchat and others, which are basically just being developed for mobile. You cannot call an Uber, through a web application or some desktop application or so. And then the next phase, that's where we are today, is AI first. And you see this in Silicon Valley, in a lot of the companies there. This is basically the direction they are going. So that means you develop for Google Assistant or for Amazon Echo and Alexa, the skills and so on first, before you decide on, do you need to develop an application for mobile and then likely not for desktop. The question is now, where do we go next? Will the next phase be AI only? I think that's an open question, and we'll see how the world develops and how we actually will drive this development. Whoever has been at CES this year, my conclusion was, AI everywhere. And I also saw it, today at Cebit. You could see it at IBM with all the cognitive applications and solutions and so on, and at many different places. So I think this is important, and of course it means we need to focus on this area, and we need to have the right skills on board, and we have to have the right partnerships in this space. Now, this, of course, drives the three rings I showed before, to the digital future becoming a triple S, meaning smart customer, smart products, and smart enterprise. And of course, when we talk about mobility, that's the next phase. It's also smart mobility. And I want to focus a little bit on that and show you a few of the aspects. So one very key topic is, for me, the cockpit itself, the smart user experience in the vehicle. Today, there's still a lot of manual operation. There are still a lot of switches, a lot of interaction needed, even to get driving. I mean, today we have counted it's between 7 and 8 steps a user or a driver needs to take, before you can actually start driving. We think we can reduce this to maybe 1 step, or hopefully 0 steps. And a quote from Steve Jobs, which you probably know about the user experience, you've got to start with the customer experience first and then work your way back to the technology, not the other way around. This way, we find the right solutions. And looking at our user experience vision, it's very much centered around the human. It's enabled by AI, and it's actually continuously learning. And it's actually taking into account the context, the situation, the location, and also knowing the person and learning continuously. In my opinion, this will change the user experience in vehicles completely, even in today's vehicles, with a steering wheel and pedals, which you still manually control and drive yourself. With, of course, natural body language understanding, with a conversational AI, digital assistant, which you have to interact with and interfere or invert gaze interaction, and of course implicit behavior, driving context. That's one important topic. The next one is the AI-based smart ecosystem and digital platform. I want to show you our vision for this. You see the user here in the center at the bottom, and then the layers of interaction from a mobility consultant, maybe still in the retail space, but which has, access through a tablet to all the information, like a customer relationship management platform and so on. You see this virtual personal assistant as the next one, and then the mobility dashboard, and I will talk a little bit more about it. The next layer are the stores. So we see the need for actually 3 stores. On the one hand, a mobility store, giving access to all the mobility services like logistics, infrastructure, energy, and so on, all these demands, and of course mobility on demand, a big space we're investing in. The next one is an automotive store, for hardware, software, services, and so on related to automotive. And then the next layer is actually the content store for entertainment, for shopping, for working, for education. And we think this is actually going to change dramatically over time, and we will form new partnerships, and these are just a few, to show this as an example. First party, second party, third party content and partnerships. And new interfaces will dominate, in our opinion, the customer experiences around mobility. And I already talked about these 3. So I think even the physical brand representative, will develop to become a mobility consultant, which users, which customers, which people who are interested actually will interact with. Then this AI-based digital cognitive assistant, very important part of actually interacting with users and having natural language understanding and cognitive computing and heavy AI-based. And as we know it, from Siri, from Alexa, from Google Assistant, these get better and better over time. But it's important to have this layer. And then the online platform, of course, it's a big topic for us, developing a digital platform, one for truck and bus, which is very much B2B related, and it was actually shown here at the IAA in Hanover last year in September as a world premiere, a huge success. It will go to market this year, actually in spring. We call it Rio, so there will be one Rio digital platform, for all truck and bus solutions, and then one digital platform for our passenger car brands. And I think, customers expect more and more, similar solutions and interactions and very intelligent solutions, to just ask, how do I get from A to B? And, the digital assistant will offer the right solution, will offer the best option, depending on the context, depending on traffic, depending on all these different situations, and also potentially even depending on cost and availability of vehicles. So maybe even a question here, does it make sense for me to buy a car, or should I just use one? In my opinion, AI is improving our lives. I mean, we see it already today. Those of us which have maybe Amazon Echo with Alexa, or Google Assistant, or we just use our smartphones for that. In my opinion, this is a big topic. Of course, it has just started. There's much more investment going into AI, and it will lead to the disruption of the automotive industry. And I will talk a little bit more about why I do think this way. And you can see this exponential curve. I mean, this is the best definition I found for disruption. So it's the difference, basically, let's say if you look at the digital development or exponential development of digital technology, being it in the photography space, for example, and you could see the analog development, was at the bottom. Eventually, the disruption will take place, and, old technologies will fade out, will fade away. And I think we need to do everything possible, to be on that exponential curve. And in my opinion, self-driving automobiles will be that next big topic, and I will focus a little bit more about it. Now, looking at the big three, kind of axes of disruption in automotive, which we have today. One in the sustainability, going from combustion engines to electric drive. I think that's an easy one for us to fix, and for many of our, partners and competitors. The second one, that's already much more difficult because it's much more software, is actually the axis going from human-driven to self-driving automobiles. And then the third axis, going from ownership to shared mobility. I personally think that we can actually kind of change this trend from ownership to shared mobility back to more ownership with self-driving automobiles, because they combine basically the advantages of ownership. If you own a car, it's yours, it's your personal space. You can configure it yourself. It's your interior. You can actually leave your personal items in the vehicle. You can leave your stroller if you have kids in the car. It's always clean. It's always hygienic, and so on. And it's always there for you. It's always on time. If you give it access to your calendar, basically it will come and pick you up, without even asking for it or calling it. And then combine that with the shared mobility advantages, that you don't have to go and actually walk to the car. It will always come and pick you up at the door. It will leave you, at your destination to walk into the destination, into your basically door where you arrive, and you don't have to search for parking. We know the number one reason why people actually want autonomous driving cars already today is that the search for parking goes away. About 30% of all traffic actually in cities is search for parking. Now, AI is actually powering this next big thing. And in my opinion, the self-driving system will be, a huge game changer. And it's very, very important, to be heavily involved in owning or, developing this self-driving system. In my opinion, it will replace, what the engine was in the 20th century, kind of the heart of the automobile. The self-driving system will become this heart of the automobile in the 21st century. And if you look at this empty box on the right, these are kind of the core inventions, over the last 150, 170 years. And you can see, from the steam engine to the train to electricity to the car to the PC, in my opinion, this next empty box will be filled by this self-driving system technology. And for those of us, which are engineers, if you're interested in the technology, just a few words about it. I mean, what you need is 360-degree sensing through different layers of sensors, being it laser or LiDARs, being it cameras, radar, and ultrasonic or other way of short-range radar technology. You need a central computing unit, which is like 30 to 4 times, higher performance, or has higher performance than today's technology, which we know. And you need redundancy. I mean, similar to what we have today in aeronautics. Basically, you need redundancy in the steering, redundancy in the braking, redundancy in the power supply, redundancy in the sensors, in the hardware, and then it's about 70% actually software. And this is huge. I mean, it's AI-based software, so from the perception through the sensor fusion, the object detection, the situation analysis, the path planning, and also the decision-making, especially in the situation analysis and the decision-making engine, heavy self-learning and AI technology to learn not just yourself or in one vehicle, but also share this knowledge with each other. So you could even, say that these vehicles will kind of develop, superhuman capabilities. Like if you, for example, or if we drive somewhere we have never been before, normally, you drive a little bit less safe. You have to look for the signposts, for the speed limits, and you don't know how the road is actually turning. These cars, when they drive with us for the first time someplace, they have the knowledge of maybe hundreds of thousands of vehicles which have driven there before, and this knowledge is available to them. And then, of course, the localization and the HD map, which is very important. What's also important is that we can develop this self-driving system once and then integrate it in all these classes and all categories of vehicles, in all these fields of application, being it passenger cars, trucks and utility vehicles, buses. These are kind of, today's vehicles on the road. But then also in yellow, these two new categories of vehicles, being on the one hand focused more on shared mobility, and then the other one's also for ownership. You can see at the bottom right here, this is a picture of a Bentley, actually, how that could look. In the interior with a personal butler as a hologram, and whatever Bentley drivers might need. This is what it means for the human, and this is really important for us. As I said, for me, the human is in the center. We need to do everything possible, to do the best for society, for us as humans. And you can see this is a picture from Berlin today. A one-way street. Cars are parked like 96% of the time. I mean, it's not a good use of resources and of assets. This is our vision for 2025. So you just see some of our autonomous vehicles, driving on the road, bringing people from A to B. There are actually 2 lanes instead of 1. And this is a picture of Houston. You can see this is Houston from the top. We have marked in blue all the parking lots and parking garages. I mean, it's amazing how much space is wasted in the cities, valuable space for parking. This can change because we know that absolutely, we actually need very, very few or much fewer. We only need about 1/7 of today's vehicle population in the cities, but they will be replaced every 2 years or so and 2 months. So that means in total, instead of a 15-year or so life cycle or lifetime, these vehicles will be replaced every 7.5 or 7.5 times higher, actually, or more often than today, which compensates basically for the fewer vehicles on the road today. Now, this is the vision for 2025. When you look at the piece, you see a lot of parks and green areas and children's playgrounds, and of course some shopping centers and other areas. Of course, for city planners, I think this is huge. Accessibility, another big topic for me. When you think about, the weakest amongst us, the children, the elderly, the blinds, the sick, they don't have access to individual mobility today, or it's very expensive with a taxi or maybe even an Uber or so. In my opinion, self-driving automobiles will help to increase social mobility, and this is very close to my heart. And of course, very important is safety. We know about 1.25 million traffic deaths per year. And we looked at these numbers. About 91% are actually caused by us humans and mistakes we made. And we know that at least 81.4%, looking at the statistics, will definitely be fixed with self-driving vehicles. And these are the reasons why. So these reasons are, basically, making the 81.4%. So these vehicles don't drink and drive, they don't text and drive, they don't take drugs and drive, they don't get agitated about others, in traffic and make mistakes. They don't get distracted, they don't fall asleep behind the wheel. They don't need a second reaction time. They actually react in milliseconds or microseconds. They don't run red lights. They don't speed, and they don't have this narrow field of view. Like when we get to a T-crossing, we can only look to the left or to the right. We cannot do both at the same time. These vehicles have 360-degree sensing at all times. So just a few examples. In my opinion, this is a great vision. It is mobility for all, by the push of a button. And I want to show you what we just released basically last week in Geneva. and it was actually a big success, Cedric, and it's actually the abbreviation for self-driving car. So Cedric is our first vehicle out of the group overall without a steering wheel and pedals. You can see it here on stage in Geneva, and a beautiful interior, very, very human-centric user experience. And in addition to the vehicle itself, powered by our self-driving system, what we also showed was this Volkswagen One button, which you actually push to call your vehicle, and it has a SIM card with a mobile network. It has GPS. It has a compass. It has a light ring here of LEDs, which you actually can use to point to the vehicle when it has arrived. You can see when you actually push it how the vehicle is being called, how it finds it, how much time it needs to get here, and you have directions basically to find it, and for blinds, even vibration signals to find the vehicle. So my vision is to give this, free of charge to every person on the planet. And with this, people can be in our ecosystem. The only thing you need to do when you arrive at an airport or when you need mobility, you take this out, and it's can be part of your keychain. Of course, this is also digitally available as an app, for your iPhone or Android phone or smartphone. But we think that even people, and we actually did an analysis, with blinds on the one side and also with different people. From Berlin, we went on the streets, interviewed about 40 people, and we found actually a cluster of 7 different personas, and we found actually 7 actual people. And the oldest one was an 82-year-old lady who actually doesn't have a smartphone. So that's how the team actually came up with this idea to have this one button. And it's very simple. You cannot do anything wrong. It just has one button to call it. And I think this is actually part of the spirit and how we do design thinking, how we put the human in the center to develop these solutions. So in my opinion, this will lead to the democratization of mobility, and it's going to change. In my opinion, like in 1886 when we switched from horses to automobiles as we know them today, it will be a similar shift and basically a reinvention of mobility. Here's a video of Cedric, just to get an idea how it will look. And you can see this is a city with 100% self-driving vehicles, and this is Cedric. It has a double door, actually, a giant portal door to get in on both sides. It has LED lights and LED rings and can also communicate to pedestrians. And that's actually important when you get to a pedestrian crossing, that the car communicates with the pedestrians and tells them, I'm stopping. You can actually cross the street. And it's going to be big. In my opinion, we will be able, by 2021, in that range, to bring these vehicles to market. Maybe not in Europe first. We might be in the US and Singapore and Dubai and China first. But of course, we need to work hard also here in Europe to change legislation and to be able to actually get these vehicles on the road. The Vienna Convention needs to change for this, and of course, local legislation as well. The next step is 3D mobility. We also showed this in Geneva with our subsidiary Ital Design and Airbus. Great collaboration. And what I really liked about this is actually a modular design. This is the first time I've seen this, and I actually was very happy about our engineers at Ital Design to actually see this development. And it's on the one hand a ground module, as you can see on the right, with the full self-driving system integrated. You can see the capsula, which can be detached also from the ground module. And then you see the air module, which would be developed by Airbus, our partner in this space. And the capsula and the ground module could be engineered and developed and designed by us. So this combination of 2D and 3D mobility, and feel free to look this up. You can just need to search for pop-up and Ital Design, and you can find a lot of videos and a little additional description. They also used heavy AI in the user interaction and how they did the route planning. And this can be a route planning multimodal. Even though the person sits in this one capsula, it can be partially as an autonomous vehicle on the ground module. Then it could be put into a hyperloop train, for example, as the capsula for a certain part of your route, and then maybe the last part into downtown, it would be a flying route to actually get there. Great concept. Now, the last part, it's about the smart enterprise, heavily AI-based. And the question is, of course, what about the human versus robotic and AI? We actually think it's about how can we combine the strength of us humans and robotics and AI, and not about replacing. So the perfect symbiosis is the direction we are taking. And we actually think a smart enterprise is a company which combines the human and artificial intelligence in a perfect manner in order to optimize itself continuously, with exponential thinking, with the right technology and the right expertise. And especially in these three areas, we see a lot of opportunities. On the one hand, with automation of processes, much faster, much simpler, then reducing routine jobs. I mean, for us humans, it's really not great. So if you ask the people who would do routine jobs today, they would prefer for these routine jobs to be actually taken over by machines, and then focus people more on important, on creative, and on diverse tasks. And then the last one is, of course, the increase in value creation through a better availability of valuable information, of course, very heavily. This could be bots, or this could be digital assistants with learning, with analytics and predictions, to support people in their daily jobs, even in more creative jobs. So the focus is best-in-class employee experience in a similar way as we have best-in-class user experience as a focus to achieve this outer ring. And it's really about the digital culture. And when I look at the digital transformation, not just in our company, but overall in the industries, it's really about the mindset. It's about the mental transformation. And it's about teamwork, agility, exponential thinking, data-based, decisions, failing fast, and always the human in the center. And with this comes also digital leadership. This is very key to me. And here another quote about empowerment and autonomy by Steve Jobs, which I really like. It doesn't make sense to hire smart people and then tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. And I worked for some time at Apple during my 7 years in Silicon Valley, and enjoyed it a lot. And I have to say I'm a big fan of this culture. And so for me, looking at the success DNA overall, these are the top 6 items. Also based on my learning in Silicon Valley, on the one hand, best customer experience. That needs to be in the focus, the human in the center. Top inventions and innovations. AI is part of this and enabling a lot of this. Exponential thinking, bold decisions, merely making big decisions, wherever we are, here in Europe, in Germany, across the world. I think we need to have bold decision makers as well, and visionary people, and then the right leadership culture and speed and agility, and of course always, with a focus on social responsibility. It's important to look at what does it mean for society, what does it mean for the planet, how can we preserve our resources. And with that, I want to close. I think we are the generation, actually, which is reinventing mobility, which is reinventing the automobile. And I have to say, I'm very glad and happy to be part of this movement, so to speak, and part of this generation to get this implemented. And it's in the next 3-4 years. The next 3-4 years count for all 3 axes of transformation. In the sustainability field, going to electric drive, in the digital field, going to self-driving automobiles, but also in the urban field, going to very much, focused on mobility on demand, basically on shared mobility, so that everyone can have access to mobility around the planet, even those people which cannot afford it today or cannot access it because they are blind or they are sick or they are children. So with that, I come to an end of my presentation. Thank you very much for being here. I don't know if there's plan to ask any questions. We have 2 minutes left. Thank you.
You've got time maybe for one question.
Okay.
Yep. Any questions? We've got time maybe for one. We're a little pressed on time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, congratulations to all what you have done for Germany and for VW. Very great. So, but I have one question to your about your boss, because he said for two years ago he can't imagine that a vehicle can make decisions like a human. So, has he changed his mind?
He has changed his mind, yeah. So I'm glad you asked this question. That was before I joined the company. So we have worked hard.
Good work.
We have worked hard, and actually you can look up the keynote at the Geneva Auto Show last year. So if you look at the Volkswagen Group Night 2016, you will find our presentation, which both of us gave, and he actually stood on stage and said, you know what, I know in September of last year that was the statement, but I believe in this technology now. We are making heavy investments, and so I have his commitment and everyone's support, so thank you.
All right. Mr. Jungwirth, thank you very much. Let's give him a round of applause.
Appreciate it. Thank you.